We begin today the Gemara on Daf Mem Dalid Amud Beis, 4 lines up from the bottom of the Amud, Gufa. Zakta Gemara Gufa. Here, let's bring back the subject itself that we spoke about before and mentioned a few times. Omar Ravin bar Shmuel Mishmei de Shmuel. Ravin the son of Shmuel said in the name of his father Shmuel, Hamayche sada lachaverai. You sell a property to your friend Shaloi b'achrayis, and you're making it clear. I give you no guarantee. If it's going to get possessed from you, taken away from you, I'm not going to reimburse you for this. So it's a sale which carries a big risk in it. But still, if then this person has an issue, that someone is trying to take away this property from him, from the buyer, the seller cannot come and testify on his behalf to help him out, to prove that that belongs to him. Now you may think, why shouldn't he be able to testify for him? He's not gaining by this. Why should he be pasal eidos? Whether the property is taken away from the buyer, whether it's not taken away from the buyer, the seller anyways has no responsibility to reimburse him. So why shouldn't he be able to testify on his behalf? The reason is because by testifying for the buyer and keeping the property in the possession of the buyer, you now make that property available for a bal chayv, for a lender of the seller that you owed money to, and there's a lien on this property. They should be able to come and collect that chayv from this property. If it'll be confiscated from the buyer, then your bal chayv can't come and collect his loan from there. So you want it to stay in the hands of the buyer to make it available for your bal chayv to collect from it. This is a statement of Ravin bar Shmuel. Now, so on this the Gemara asks, Hey Chidam, what exactly here is the case that we say that the seller is gaining by making it available to collect for his bal chayv? If the seller owns a different property as well that's still in his possession, so then the halacha is when the bal chayv, when the lender comes to collect his loan, he's not going to take the property from the buyer anyways. If you have to collect the loan, you don't go to the buyer first. You go to the borrower himself. If he has a property in his own possession, you take that property. So in such a case, he's not gaining by having the property in the possession of the buyer. The bal chayv is not going there to collect from it. And if the case here is that the seller is broke, he doesn't own anything else. It's just this one property that he sold to this person now, and that's it. He has no other source where the bal chayv could come and collect from. So then if that's the case, what difference does it make to the seller? Why is it so important for the seller that this property should be available in the hands of the buyer so the bal chayv could come and collect it? And if it won't be available there, what's going to happen? He's not going to come back to you to take any money from you either, because you don't have any other property. Either way, you're not losing any money off of this. Either the bal chayv will get his payment from this property of the buyer, or not. And if he doesn't get from there, so then too bad. He's not coming back to you because you don't have any other property anyways. So why can't you testify for the buyer to help him keep the property if you're anyways not gaining in this? Taisus over here adds an interesting point that you may argue and say, even though you don't gain right now because the bal chayv is not going to come back to collect anything from you, because at this point you don't own any other property anyways. But how about in the future? If you buy another property in the future, since your loan was never paid up yet, now the bal chayv is going to come running to you to take your property. So you are in the negei b'davar. You want the bal chayv to be able to collect this property from the buyer so that in the future he shouldn't come back to you. So Taisa says, no, because of what's going to happen in the future, you don't become a negei b'eidus. Negei b'eidus, to say that you're impartial and you can't testify, is only if right now we see that there's a gain in your eidus based on what's going to happen today, not because of in the future you may gain out of this. It doesn't work that way. So the Gemara answers, la'olam, really the case over here is, the lesle arachriti. The seller doesn't own any other land. So why can't he say eidus for the buyer to keep the property there for the bal chayv to come and collect from it? The Amar lo'niche the lahavi lo'verasha v'lo yishalim. The reason why he's in the negei b'eidus is because if he's not going to have the property available for the bal chayv to collect, so then he's going to be a rasha because he borrowed money and he didn't pay his loan. And his bal chayv, his lender, couldn't collect. You want it to be available for the bal chayv to be able to collect the loan. So the point here is not that you're going to lose monetarily. You're not losing either way because you don't have any other property to pay him. But if the property will be there, then your loan will be paid up and you won't be a rasha. You don't want to be a person that's a rasha, that's not paying your loan. Fragt the Gemara, sof, but in the end of the day, either way, legabi idach nami loy v'rasha v'lo yishalamhu. But what happens now if the property gets taken away from the from the buyer? If the Baal Chayv comes and collects it from him, and then you're not going to pay back the buyer, you're not going to reimburse him when it's going to be taken away from him. So either way, you're going to be a leiva rasha v'lo yishalem. In other words, it doesn't make any difference whether the Baal Chayv takes away the property from the buyer, or even if you're not going to say eidos. And then what's going to happen is this property is going to be confiscated from the buyer. So now you're not going to reimburse the buyer for this. And so you're going to be a loive rasha v'lo yishalem by not compensating or by not reimbursing the buyer for this. So either way, there's somebody that you're not going to be paying to here. Either the Baal Chayv is not going to get his property, or the buyer is not going to get his property. So what are you gaining by this? So the Gemara answer is no, that is not a concern to the seller. The fact that the buyer is going to lose his property, and then you're going to be a loiva rasha v'lo yishalem that you're not reimbursing him for this, that's not your responsibility. The amalei, because you say to the buyer, lahachi zivini loch shaloi b'achrayis. That's exactly why I clearly told you that I'm selling you this property, and I give you no guarantee that if it's going to be taken away, I'm not going to reimburse you for this. Why did he say this to him? Because he knew there's a risk in this, and he was ready to buy it anyways. So therefore here, I'm not a loiva rasha v'lo yishalem. If I don't pay my loan, that's something. I borrowed money and I don't pay back, then I become a rasha. But the fact that you're not going to be reimbursed if it gets taken away from you, that's something that he's not going to be a rasha for. Sagt the Gemara, Machris Rava v'iteime Rav Papa. Rava, or others say it was Rav Papa, that announced the following halacha. And they said it to all the Amirayim, the Salkin La'ela, whether those Amirayim that were traveling from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, or the Nachsan Lesata, those that were coming from Eretz Yisrael, that were traveling down to Bavel, and they wanted them all to know the following halacha. Hi, Bar Yisrael, the Zavan Lechamer Le Yisrael. One Yid that sells a donkey to his friend, Yisrael Chavre, to his Yid friend. And he sold it to him, and he guaranteed it to him that this is mine, and if it gets taken away from you, I'll reimburse you for it. And then what happened is, V'kasi akum, a guy comes along, v'anis le'minei, and is grabbing it away from this Yid. Dinohu, the halacha is the mafzi le'minei, that the seller should go and help the buyer rescue this donkey that's being taken away from him. So even though this guy that's coming and grabbing away this donkey is not doing it with proper proof, he's not bringing a raya that the seller, the Yid, was a ganev and that it really belonged to him, he's just grabbing it away. Nevertheless, the seller has a responsibility to go and help the buyer rescue it from this guy. So Rashbam explains, we'll see soon in the Gemara here, that the reason here is there has to be some kind of indication that what the guy is doing is not stam a gneva. If the guy is stam stealing it, so then that's the bad luck of the buyer. There's no reason for the seller to have to help him out with that. But the case over here is that there's some indication that the guy is taking it because he has a valid claim that it actually belongs to him. That's number one. Number two, and it says here in the Gemara, mafzi le'minei. So according to the Rashbam, mafzi le'minei means that you should help out the buyer. Go to a court, bring proof that it belongs to you. That's what it means to rescue. From Taisos and other Yishayim, it's mashma. Maftzile means even more than that. Maftzile means that you should reimburse him for it. If you're not going to be able to get that donkey back from the guy that's grabbing it away, you should reimburse your buyer for this. Okay, so now the Gemara clarifies this case. This halacha that you should go and help out your buyer when a guy is grabbing it away, this is only said if the buyer says, I don't know that this donkey that you sold me was born to a donkey that you owned. Meaning the buyer says, I have no knowledge that it actually really belonged to you, to the seller. Maybe you stole it. So then, here, a guy is taking it away, and there's signs that the guy has rights to it, so then the seller is going to have to come and rescue and help out the buyer with this. If the buyer himself says, I know for a fact that this donkey was born to your donkey, it's a bas chamayra, I know for a fact that you're the real owner, and this guy is stam a ganev, so then it's the bad luck of the buyer, and the seller does not have to come and help him rescue this chamayr, this donkey from this guy that's stealing it from him. So then he doesn't have to help him. Another detail, V'lo Amara, on this halacha that you have to help him rescue the donkey from the guy, was only said, Ela deloy onisle lididei lo uchva. When the guy comes and grabs away this donkey from this buyer, he didn't come and take the donkey with its saddle. Aval onisle lididei ulo uchva, but if he comes and takes the donkey and the saddle, loy. So then you don't have to help the buyer from this guy. The reason is because if the guy is coming and taking just the donkey and he leaves the saddle for the yid, so then we see here, this is the sign that tells us that what the guy is doing is not stam an act of geneva. He's doing this because he has some proof that the donkey belongs to him. That's why he leaves the saddle behind. Because the saddle is not mine, the donkey is mine. But if he's taking the donkey and the saddle, so then it looks more like he's stam ganev. He's just stealing. So why should the seller have to come and rescue it, help him rescue it from the hands of the guy? Stam, it's the bad luck of the buyer. Huh? Yeah, obviously Yisrael always applies, but we're talking about the responsibility that a moicha has. However, Ameima argues with this whole Indian. Ameima said, doesn't make a difference. Afil leka kolhani, even if you don't have the conditions that I mentioned before, even if it's a case where the buyer says, I don't know that you, the seller, that this donkey really belonged to you. Or even if it's a case where he's taking the donkey and without the saddle, loy. Still, the seller does not have to come and help the buyer rescue it from this guy that's taking it from him. Why not? My time, Meida Yoda, because we know the stam oivik kechavim anasu, that it's a stam, a guy that's coming and grabbing away this donkey. We can assume that he's just a ganev that's using a strong hand to grab it away, and you don't have to. It's not the responsibility of the moicha to help him out. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Ashepiyim dib b'shav, with their mouth they speak falsehood, v'yaminam yamin shoker, and their hand, the right hand, is falsehood. Therefore, by a guy, there's no responsibility of a yid to have to come and help him out when someone is grabbing it away from the buyer. Okay, going back now to the Mishnah regarding the halacha of a chazakeh. The Mishnah said, "Uman ein lechazakeh v'cholo," that if a craftsman has something in his possession and he claims that he bought it, so then there's no chazakeh. So, for example, a tailor that has a garment in his possession and he claims that he bought this garment from the owner. And the owner says, you bought it from me, you didn't buy it from me. I gave it for you to do an alteration. How could you say you bought it from me? So in such a case, you don't have a chazakeh. And here we're talking about a movable item, a garment. And the chazakeh is not 3 years, as we've been learning here in this whole Pedic. Chazakeh is just when you usually by a metaltlin, you have it in your possession, that itself is proof, you can claim that it's yours. But not by a tailor or by any other craftsman. Because over here it's clear that it wasn't given to him for, it wasn't bought. Over here he's a tailor, so he has it because he's doing an alteration. So now here the Gemara brings a machlokes when exactly this halacha of the Mishnah applies. So Rabbi says that this is it's limited. We don't always apply the halacha of the Mishnah. Omar Rabbi lo shanu, the Mishnah's adin, it wasn't taught, ella only shemasa lo beidim, when there's witnesses that you gave it to this tailor to do a job for you. But if you gave it, if it was given to the tailor without any witnesses, so it's in the hands of the tailor now. But there's no witnesses that saw that you came and gave it to the tailor to do a job for you with this garment. So now over here you will have the tailor, that is, will have a chazakeh, because the tailor cannot come and say, you can say to him, I don't know what you're talking about. This never happened. I never got this from you. Because there's no Adam that he even got it from him. So now, if he comes and says that I bought it from you, so he's admitting that I have it, but I bought it from you, Mehaman, he will also be believed. Now, so the pshat here in this Gemara, the way that Rashbam explains it, as we'll see also from the continuation of the Gemara, is that Rabbah holds that the main point here to explain pshat in our Mishnah is this Nekoda. If there's Adam that you gave it to the tailor to do an alteration for you, then you can't have a chazakeh. But if there's no Adam, then there's no chazakeh. Now, there's another detail here which the Gemara does not mention explicitly, and that is, do we see now this garment in the hands of the tailor, or do we not see it there? So from the language of the Gemara, it sounds like that the case is that we don't see it, because the Gemara says that he has a migu, that he could have said it never happened. You never gave it to me. If you never gave it to me, so that means that we don't see it even in his possession at all. But the Rashbam clarifies that that's not the pshat, that according to Rabbah, even if we see it in the hands of the tailor, he's still going to be believed if it came to his hands without Edom that saw that he gave it to him for an alteration. And when the Gemara says that he could say Lehoya Dvarim Ha'ilam, what the Gemara is saying is, even if we see the garment in the hands of the tailor can still say, yeah, this is a garment. It may have once belonged to you, but I never got it from you. I got it from someone else. And you claim it was yours, well, maybe you sold it to that person that I got it from, but I never got it from you. I got it from someone else. I don't know what you're talking about. Because again, there's no Edom here that are saying that they saw that this person gave it to him for an alteration. So therefore, the point according to Rabbi is, if there's Edom, so then you can't ever say that you bought it. You can't ever claim there's Edom that see that you got it for an alteration. And if there's no Edom, so then you can say that if you don't see it in his possession, so then you can say, I don't even have it. I don't know what you're talking about. And even if we see it, but he still could say, I didn't get it from you, I got it from someone else.
Does it have to be a mufsek for 3 years?
No. Over here, there's no chazak of 3 years. Here, we're talking about metaltlim, which is just 1 day or 1 moment. Okay, now there's another point over here to explain regarding what the Gemara is saying, that when he gets it with Edom, and now we don't see the garment in his possession. So again, Rabbi is saying, as long as he got it with Edom, you're not going to be able to claim that it's yours. Edom saw that it was given to you. But now the question though is, how about in the case where you got it with Edom, but right now we don't see anymore that the tailor has it. We don't see it. There's someone coming and claiming I gave it, but we don't see it. So isn't it possible for the tailor to come and claim, I gave it back to you? Just like the Gemara is saying, there's a migu that he could have said that it never happened, I never got it from you. L'chayre, even when he got it with Edom, but he still could have claimed that I gave it back, because we don't see it now in his possession anymore. That's what the Gemara is going to address now. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye says to Rabbe, if this is the way you're explaining here, that you have a migu, because you have a migu, so therefore you can come and claim that you bought it, because you could have said that it never happened, but afila be'edem nami, even if you did get it with Edom, but you got it with Edom. If we don't see it in the tailor's possession right now, so can't the tailor come and say, I returned it to you? So if the tailor is saying that he bought it, so mehamen, you should be believed as well. So Rabbi answers, no, this that he can say I returned it to you is actually not true. Because Rabbi holds, do you think that if someone gives a pekodin, a deposit for someone to keep for you something, and you gave it with Edom, that when you return it, you're not going to have to return it with the proof of Edom? That's not true. No, you shouldn't think this way. That's not a true thing. Ella, rather, the halacha is, if you give a deposit to someone and it's with Edom, when you return it, you're going to have Edom that you returned it. You can't just come and claim that I returned it. You have an obligation to return it with Edom, and only if you have Edom that you returned it, will you be believed that you returned it. So over here, in our case, since you got it with Edom, you don't have that migu that you could say that you returned it without Edom. So even if we don't see it in your possession, if there's no Edom that you returned it, we know that you still have it. That's the reason why Rabbi says that even in this case, you're not going to be believed, even when we don't see it by you. Okay, the Rashbam here does add and says that there is a case, though, that a person can claim that he gave it back, meaning he can come and say, I gave it back to you with Edom, but now those Edom that were there when I gave it back to you left. They're overseas. They're not here anymore. In such a case, he actually will be believed. But that's not what we're talking about over here. That's not the taina that the person is saying. If the person is going to come and say, I gave it back to you, just to say I gave it back to you without Edom, according to Rabbi, at this point in the Gemara, Rabbi holds that he will not be believed. Okay, so it comes out of here again, just to clarify again the point, that according to Rabbi, the halacha of the Mishnah, that a uman, a craftsman, a tailor, does not have a chazakeh. So what does it depend on? Whether we see it in his possession, whether we don't see it in his possession, that's not the main point. That makes no difference. The main point is, if you got it with Edom, then you're not going to be believed to say that you bought it. Whether we see it by you, whether we don't see it by you, you got it. But with Edom, you have this. So then there's nothing you can say. You can't claim you bought it. We know that you got it for an alteration, so it's not yours. If you got it without Edom, then you're going to be believed to say that you bought it. And again, it doesn't matter whether we see it by you, whether we don't. Even if we see it by you, you have a migu. You could have said, I never got this from you. Even when we see it in his possession, you can claim, I got it from someone else. Okay, this is Rabba. Now, Abaye, though, disagrees. The Gemara doesn't spell it out over here right now, but from the continuation of the Gemara, as the Rashbam explains, Abaye holds that the pshat of the Mishnah is more simple, nothing to do with Eidim. Abaye's opinion is that the pshat of the Mishnah is that it actually all depends on whether we see this item in the hands of the tailor. If he has it in his hands and we see it, and the owner is claiming, I gave this to you for an alteration, and the tailor is saying, no, I bought it from you, he can't claim that he bought it. Why not? So the Rashbam says, it's really based on a whole different halacha. It's based on this halacha that if it's in the hands of the tailor, there is a presumption that he didn't buy it. There's an assumption that he got it to do a job with it. This is a halacha not only over here, b'nigeya to a tailor that has this, what Rashbam says, b'chlal, b'nigeya to any items that the derech is, that it's asuyin lahashul lahasker. When you have items that it's the habit that people borrow these things, you could never establish a chazakah by the fact that you have it in your possession. Because how can you come and claim that you bought it? You're saying, I have it in my possession. How did I get it if I didn't buy it? The answer is you borrowed it or you rented it. The fact that you have it in your possession is no proof that you bought it. It's the derech to borrow it. So by a tailor, for sure, even more so, since the derech of a tailor is that he has these garments doing alterations, so now for him to come and claim that he bought it just because I have it in my shop doesn't make any sense. Adarabba, we say that you probably just have it for an alteration. So therefore, Abaye's shit is, doesn't matter if there's Eidim, if there's no Eidim, all of that is irrelevant. If we see it, so then we know that you have it for an alteration. If we don't see it in your possession, so then, Abaye will agree. We don't see it in your possession, so you could deny the whole story. So then you're able to say, then you can claim that you bought it, you have a migu. That's the machlokes here. Okay, so now the Gemara says, Meisve Abaye. So Abaye asked on Rabbe, the Brisa says, Ro avdoi biyad umon. You see your slave that's by a craftsman. What's your slave doing by this craftsman? So your slave was by this craftsman, and he was actually there for a long period of time, at least for 3 years. That's the only way you could establish a chazak over a slave, because he was learning some kind of a trade by this craftsman, and he was there for a long period of time. The talisay biyat kaiva. So you see a garment by the hand of a launderer. Amaloi mativa yatzlacha. So the owner says, "What is this doing? What is my eved doing by you for 3 years? Or what's my garment doing by the launderer for even one day when it's there?" And he answers, the craftsman or the launderer answers, "Ata machartali, you sold it to me, or ata nesatali b'matana, you gave it to me as a gift." Lo yomaklum, he's not going to be believed. Like it said in our Mishnah, that there's no chazakah. Now, the Mishnah, the Brisa that is continues, B'fanai amarta loy l'moichre v'litnei loy b'matana. If the launderer claims and says that you told someone else to give it to me or to sell it to me, dvar of kayama, then with such a kind of a claim, he will be believed. Okay, so first, before the Gemara comes and explains the question on Rabbah, the Gemara clarifies what's the second case of this Brisa saying. Why in this case, with this kind of a claim, is he believed? Ma'ishna reisha or ma'ishna seifa? What's the difference between the beginning of this Brisa and the end of this Brisa? What difference does it make if the tailor is claiming, you sold it to me, and he's not believed to say that? Or he's telling the owner, you told someone else to sell it to me, and then he is believed. There's no reason to make any distinction here. So the Gemara clarifies and says the pshat is different. Omar Rabbe, or the Rashbam is going to Omar Rove. Seife, the end of this Brisa, the case is, B'yoytze mitachas yidei acher. In the Brisa, it's not the tailor that has it in his possession anymore. Someone else has it. V'ka'amalei, and now this other person is telling the original owner, and that other person is telling him, that I saw in front of me, you told the tailor to give it to me as a gift. So what this person is now claiming is, could be you gave this garment to the tailor for an alteration, but then you told the tailor, instead of giving it back to me, give it to someone else as a gift. That's what his claim is. So here the Brisa says he's believed. Migu di amale minach zevinte. This other person that's not a tailor could have just simply said, I bought it directly from you, from the original owner, and he has a chazakah for that. He's not a tailor, only by a tailor, and he uman, there's no chazakah, but he could have just simply claimed, I bought it from you. So when he also claims and says that I got it from the tailor, and in front of me, I saw that you told the tailor to sell it to me or to give it to me, dvarav kayamen, he will be believed. So his words are true and he's believed. Okay, that's the pshat and the difference between the Reisha and the Seifa of this Braisa. But now the Gemara goes back to the first case of this Braisa. Katani Mies, what does it say here in the beginning of this Braisa? Reisha, Ra. It says that, what's the case here? You saw that your garment is in the hands of the tailor. And over there it's saying that even when you saw it, you're not believed, the tailor is not believed to establish a chazaka on it. Now, Hechidami, what's the case here? If the case here is that there's witnesses that saw that you gave it to the tailor, so then lama lira. If there's Eidim that are here, so why is that only when you saw your garment in the hands of the tailor? Nesi Eidim v'nishkal. If you have Eidim that you gave it to the tailor, so then we know that you gave it to him, so then based on the Eidim, you should come and be able to take it back from him. Why is the Braisa saying only if you saw it in the hands of the tailor? Elalav, so isn't the pshat over here in this Braisa, Delek Eidim. There are no Eidim that you gave it to the tailor. And what is the Braisa saying? Vichira, that if we see it in the hands of the tailor, Mia Tafisle. The owner is able to come and take it back. So this is a question on Rabbah, because Rabbah said that if there's no Eidim, even if you see it in the hands of the tailor, you're not able to take it back. Why? Because Rabbah says you still have a migu. You could have said lo yehoyu dvarim ha'olam. You can say that I didn't get it from you, I got it from someone else. Abaye disagreed. Abaye holds as long as we see it in the hands of the tailor, there's no chazakah. That's what we see over here in this Braisa. Even without Eidim, as soon as you see it, then there's no chazakah. It says the Gemara, loi, that it's not a question on this point of what Rabbi said. Why not? Lo'olam the ike Eidim, v'hu dira. Really, the case over here is that there's Eidim that you gave it to the tailor. And what the Braisa is saying is, even when there's Eidim, it's only if there's both, that there's Eidim, and you see the item now, the garment in the hands of the tailor, then he won't have a chazakah. But the Gemara asks right away on this, how is this an answer for Rabbi's opinion? But for who the omred, but you, Rabbi, is the one that said, Hamafked eitz chavere be'edim, tzarech lepoire be'edim. That if you give someone a pekadon with Eidim, then you can never claim that you returned it. Because if you got it with Eidim, you're going to have to bring Eidim that you returned it. So if that's the case, why would this Braisa over here say that only if you see it in the hands of the tailor, that then you can't have a chazak, even if you don't see it? According to Rabbi, the only thing, as we explained before, the only thing that matters is there Eidim here? If you have Eidim that you gave it to the tailor, you can't claim that you don't have it anymore. You can't even claim that you returned it, because you would have to have Eidim for that. So you shouldn't have a chazak, even if you don't see it in the hands of the tailor. So Amalei, so Rabbi says, Hodri B. Regarding this point here, I retract my opinion. I have charata for my opinion. So now, Rabbi actually holds that the only time there won't be a chazakeh when there's a garment in the hands of a uman, in the hands of a tailor, is only if there's two conditions. It has to be that you see it in the hands of the tailor, and there's Eidim that it was given to you for an alteration. It has to be both together. If it's just the fact that you see it in his hand, it's not good enough. According to Rabbi, you're still able to claim, I bought it from you, and he has a migu. You could say, I never got it from you. So therefore, besides the fact that you have to see it in the hands of the tailor, you also need Eidim that he got it from him, both together. Right? Now Abaye, though, disagrees with that. Abaye holds, no, you don't need any Eidim. As long as we see it in the hands of the tailor, there's no chazakah for any item that's in the hands of a tailor. Okay, so according to this, Rabbi is saying again two conditions. He has to be with Eidim and to see it. And Abaye says just the fact that we see it in the hands of the tailor is enough that there shouldn't be a chazakah. So now the Gemara asks on this, Mosav Rav l'siyua l'Rabbi. Rav asks the question on Abaye, and this is a proof to Rabbi's opinion. The Braisa says, how about in a case where there's an argument, the price? What was the price for the job that has to be done here? And a person gave his garment to a tailor. The tailor says, that we made up that you're going to pay me $2. But the tailor says, no, the price that we made up was only $1. So who's believed? So the halacha is, kol zman shatalis biyad uman, as long as this garment is in the hands of the tailor, al balabayis lahavi raya. The balabayis is going to have to prove that he's right, because the tailor has a migu that he could have said that what I have in my possession, I bought it, it's mine. And so since he could have said it's his, so he can claim up to the value of the garment itself, that the price is up to the value of the garment itself, because he could have claimed that the whole garment is his. This is similar to a halacha that we learned before in the Gemara. The Gemara says before halacha a case of goats that ate up from someone's barley. And there was an argument how much barley he ate. The Gemara says that the one that experienced this damage could claim up to the value of the goat itself because he has the goat in his possession. So over here as well, you can claim up to the value of what you still have, what the tailor, the garment he still has in his possession. Nosnoloi, if you already returned this garment to the owner. So bizmanoi, if it's still in the time when you're supposed to pay, when zmanoi, as we learned in the Gemara Bava Basra, on the day that the job is done, you have the time to pay until that night. So if it's in that time period, so nishba v'noitel, the owner swears how much the price was, and he can collect. That he swears and he can collect with that he can v'noitel. Again, sorry, it's not the owner, sorry, it's the tailor that is. The tailor swears what's the price that he was told that he's going to get for it, and he can collect that payment. This is a unique halacha. Usually you don't swear and collect, but over here this is one of the cases where we say that if there's an argument between an owner and a tailor, who's the one that's probably right? It's probably the tailor that's right. The owner has different workers that he has to pay and different people, and he gets confused. He's not sure who he owes what, and therefore we trust the tailor more than the owner, and therefore the tailor swears and he gets his payment. However, avaz manoi, if it's already after the time that he was supposed to pay, so then we don't say this anymore. Over here we say amoitzi mechaverei olav haraya. So then we say that the halacha remains as always. After the time, we assume actually he can even say that I paid you already and I don't owe you anything, because a person doesn't want to pay after the time that he's supposed to. There's an isra to pay after the time. So after the time, if there's an argument how much you paid, so we believe the owner to say what the price was. Okay, so now what do we see here in this brayse? Hey chidami, what is the case in this brayse? If the case over here is that there's edem, that the owner gave this garment to the tailor, so let's let's just ask the edem, what was the deal? What was the price? Was it $1? What was it? $2? So that can't be. There's no edem here. Ella lav, it must be the lek edem. There's no edem here in this story in this brayse. So that's why there's an argument how much money he made up he's going to pay. Now, what does it say here? There's no edem, v'katani, and it says here in the brayse, uman mehemen, when we see the garment in the hands of the tailor. So the tailor is believed to say what the price is, that it's only $1 and not $2. And why is he believed? Because as long as it's still in his hands, he has the ability to just possess it and keep it and claim that he bought it. So therefore he's also believed on the price up to the value of this garment itself. He's believed on the price as well. So what do we see over here? That when do we say that Uman is believed to say Lekuchi biyadi? In a case where we just see it in his possession, we see it in his hands. So that because there's no Eidim here, he's believed to say that he bought it. According to Abaye, it doesn't work that way. According to Abaye, if we see a garment in the hands of a tailor, so there's an assumption that he got it for an alteration, there's an assumption that it's not his, and therefore there's no chazakeh. Rabba, however, says the only time there's an assumption that there's no chazakeh is you have to have both conditions. There has to be Eidim that you got it, and we see it now in your hands. So we see over here in the Braisa, clearly like Rabba's opinion, that over here there's no Eidim, because there's no Eidim, and we just see it in your hands, that's why the tailor is able to claim that he bought it. So this is a proof to Rabba's opinion. So the Gemara says, Loi, there's no Raya from here, Lo Oilam, the Leke Eidim. Over here in this Braisa there's no Eidim, and V'hu du Loira. The case in this Braisa is that there's no Eidim, and we actually don't even see the garment in the hands of the tailor, and it's only in such a case where we don't see it, and even Abaye would agree in such a case, that if there's an argument over the price, you're going to be believed because he could have just simply said, I don't have it. We don't even see it in his possession, so he could have just simply said that he doesn't have it. So it's dafke in such a case where the Braisa is saying that he's going to be believed. But in a case where we see it, then Abaye could still be right. The moment we see that the tailor has it in his possession, he can't claim that he bought it. There's an assumption that he got it just for an alteration. And therefore, if there's an argument over the price, there's no reason to believe the tailor more than the owner.